Commander Nash stepped onto the elevated platform overlooking the 1,000-meter range, his weathered hands gripping the safety rail. 1,200 meters to the targets, he announced, his voice carrying across the assembled candidates. Variable crosswinds at 15 knots. Moving silhouettes on randomized patterns. Someone behind Staff Sergeant Elena Vasquez whispered, "Nobody's making that shot." The betting started immediately. $20, says the quiet one washes out first, muttered Corporal Hendricks to his companion. Elena heard every word but kept her eyes forward, watching the distant targets dance in the heat shimmer. The morning sun cast long shadows across Fort Bragg's advanced marksmanship course, where 18 elite candidates had gathered for the final evaluation. Steam rose from coffee cups clutched in nervous hands while the early Carolina heat promised another scorching day. Elena stood third in line, her compact frame dwarfed by the larger men surrounding her. She'd been here 6 weeks, speaking only when spoken to, hitting every qualification target with mechanical precision, but never attempting anything that would draw attention. Nash descended from the platform, his combat boots striking concrete with deliberate authority. 73% failure rate on this particular exercise, he continued, stopping directly in front of Elena's position. Even among experienced snipers with multiple combat deployments, his pale blue eyes swept the line of candidates, pausing briefly on each face before moving on. This shot separates the capable from the exceptional. It requires perfect wind reading, trajectory calculation under pressure, and the kind of steady nerves that can't be taught. Elena felt the weight of 17 pairs of eyes studying her reaction. Hendricks had positioned himself where he could watch her face, clearly expecting some sign of intimidation. The candidate to her left, a decorated Marine named Rodriguez, shifted his weight and glanced down at her with poorly concealed skepticism. Before we begin today's demonstration, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from, Nash said, addressing an imaginary audience with practiced ease. Maybe you've witnessed incredible marksmanship skills in your area, the kind that separate legends from ordinary soldiers. The targets themselves were barely visible as dark specks against the far hillside, appearing and disappearing behind earthen berms according to computer-controlled timing sequences. Elena had studied their patterns for weeks during downtime, memorizing the intervals, calculating the lead times required for different wind conditions. But she'd never mentioned this to anyone, never volunteered information about her preparation methods or previous experience. Nash pulled out his tablet and began reading names. First shooter, Gunnery Sergeant Morrison. The broad-shouldered Marine stepped forward, accepting his rifle from the equipment sergeant. Morrison had distinguished himself throughout the course with consistent accuracy and confident commentary about his previous deployments. He took position behind the rifle, adjusting the bipod with practiced efficiency while Nash provided a detailed explanation of wind flags and environmental factors. The shot echoed across the range 3 minutes later. "Miss," called the spotter through his scope. Target appeared for 2.7 seconds. Morrison called back, frustration evident in his voice. "Wind shifted right as I fired." Nash nodded without comment, making notes on his tablet. Morrison gathered his gear and rejoined the line, his jaw set with disappointment. Second shooter, Staff Sergeant Chun. The slight Asian woman had earned respect throughout the course for her analytical approach and steady performance under pressure. She spent 4 minutes studying the conditions before settling into position. Her shot came 90 seconds later, followed by another missed call from the spotter. Chen's shoulders sagged slightly as she cleared her weapon and stepped back. The failures continued. Hendricks missed wide left, cursing under his breath as he rejoined the line. Rodriguez managed to clip the edge of a target but failed to achieve the center mass requirement. Each miss brought subtle glances toward Elena, measuring her reaction, waiting for signs of the nervousness they expected to see. She maintained her neutral expression, hands clasped behind her back, watching each attempt with apparent calm, while internally cataloging the wind patterns and timing sequences. Nash's voice cut through the morning air after the 8th consecutive miss. "This exercise isn't designed for success," he explained to the remaining candidates. It's designed to identify the exceptional individual who can perform under impossible conditions. Most of you will miss. That's expected and acceptable. What matters is how you handle the pressure and whether you can maintain composure when everything suggests failure is inevitable. Elena stepped forward when her name was called, accepting the rifle with steady hands. The weapon felt familiar, balanced, though she'd never handled this particular model before today. She began her preparation methodically, checking the scope settings, testing the bolt action, feeling the weight distribution. Around her, she could sense the anticipation building among the other candidates. "This should be interesting," someone whispered behind her. Hendricks chuckled softly, already counting his winnings from whatever side bets had developed during the morning's failures. Even Nash seemed to be watching with particular attention, his expression suggesting he expected this attempt to follow the same pattern as all the others. Elena settled into position behind the rifle, her body finding the natural alignment that had become second nature through countless hours of training. The bipod legs pressed firmly into the concrete shooting platform while she adjusted the buttstock against her shoulder, feeling for that perfect pocket where recoil would transfer cleanly through her frame. Her breathing slowed automatically, drawing from techniques learned in places she couldn't discuss with these candidates. The scope revealed the distant hillside in crystalline detail, heat waves distorting the landscape like water ripples. 3 target zones marked with orange panels would present silhouettes at randomized intervals, requiring split-second decisions about lead time and wind compensation. Elena's finger rested lightly on the trigger guard, never touching the trigger itself until the moment of commitment. Behind her, she could hear Hendricks explaining to Rodriguez why this shot was impossible for someone of her obvious inexperience. Nash positioned himself where he could observe both Elena and the targets simultaneously, his tablet ready to record another failure for his statistics. "She's been solid on the standard courses," he remarked to his assistant, "but this requires a different level of capability entirely." The assistant nodded, already preparing the paperwork that would document Elena's elimination from the program. Standard protocol demanded that candidates who failed the impossible shot be transferred to conventional units within 48 hours. Elena began her wind reading sequence, noting the flags positioned at 200-meter intervals downrange. Near flag showed 8 knots from the left. Middle flag indicated 12 knots quartering. Far flag suggested 15 knots with variable gusts. The pattern would require a complex calculation, accounting for bullet drop over the extended range while compensating for wind drift that would change 3 times during the projectile's flight path. She performed similar calculations before, but never under this level of scrutiny. The first target appeared for exactly 2.4 seconds, a dark silhouette sliding across the orange panel before disappearing behind its berm. Elena tracked its movement, but didn't fire, using the appearance to confirm her wind reading and timing estimates. Several candidates behind her exchanged glances, interpreting her restraint as hesitation rather than tactical patience. Hendricks leaned toward Rodriguez and whispered, "She's already psyched out. Probably never seen a target beyond 600 meters." Elena's breathing pattern established itself in the familiar rhythm that preceded every successful engagement. 4 counts in, hold for 2, 6 counts out, natural pause. Her heart rate slowed to the steady 60 beats per minute that indicated optimal physiological conditions for precision shooting. The rifle seemed to disappear beneath her, becoming an extension of her body rather than a separate tool requiring conscious control. The second target presentation lasted 3 point-tone seconds, moving from right to left across the panel. Elena's crosshairs tracked smoothly, calculating lead time while her mind processed wind flags and range data. Still, she held fire, gathering additional information about the target's movement pattern. Nash checked his watch, noting that she'd been in position for over 4 minutes without attempting a shot. Most candidates fired within 90 seconds, driven by performance anxiety and the pressure of observation. Behind Elena, the conversation continued in stage whispers designed to be overheard. Rodriguez mentioned his own experience with long-range shooting in Afghanistan, emphasizing the impossibility of the current conditions. Chun added her assessment of wind patterns, explaining why even experienced snipers would struggle with the variable conditions. Hendricks contributed his opinion about Elena's obvious nervousness, predicting she would either miss spectacularly or decline to shoot altogether. Elena's focus narrowed to the essential elements of the shot sequence. Range, 1,200 meters confirmed. Wind, complex but manageable pattern requiring three-stage compensation. Target, humanoid silhouette with center mass scoring zone. Weapon, unfamiliar but properly zeroed for standard ammunition. Her finger moved to the trigger, taking up the slack with gradual pressure that would release the shot at the exact moment when all variables aligned. The third target appeared with mechanical precision, beginning its traverse across the orange panel. Elena's crosshairs settled on a calculated intercept point, her breathing cycle reaching the natural pause between exhale and inhale. The trigger broke cleanly, surprising her with its crisp release despite her unfamiliarity with this particular rifle. The shot echoed across the range, followed immediately by the whisper of the bullet's supersonic passage through morning air. 3 seconds of absolute silence hung over the shooting platform while the bullet completed its 1,200-meter journey. Elena remained motionless in position, scope focused on the target area, waiting for the spotter's call. Behind her, 17 candidates held their breath, expecting to hear another miss announced. Nash's pen hovered over his tablet, ready to document the failure and begin the elimination paperwork that would end Elena's participation in the advanced program. The spotter's voice cracked slightly as he made the call. Hit. Center mass. Perfect score. His words seemed to hang in the morning air like the gun smoke still drifting from Elena's muzzle. Nobody moved for several heartbeats, processing the impossible result. Hendricks opened his mouth as if to speak, but no words emerged. Rodriguez stared at Elena's prone form with newfound attention, his previous dismissive attitude evaporating like morning dew. Nash lowered his tablet slowly, his eyes shifting between Elena and the distant target area. The spotter confirmed the hit again, his voice stronger now, professional training overriding his surprise. Target down, center mass, textbook placement. Elena finally lifted her head from the scope, her expression unchanged despite achieving what 8 previous candidates had failed to accomplish. She began clearing her weapon with the same methodical precision she'd shown throughout the preparation sequence. The silence stretched until Morrison finally spoke. How did you read that wind pattern? His question carried genuine curiosity rather than skepticism, recognizing that Elena had accomplished something beyond his own considerable experience. Chin nodded in agreement, studying Elena with the analytical attention she typically reserved for complex technical problems. Even Hendricks seemed subdued, his betting confidence shaken by the unexpected demonstration of capability he'd just witnessed. Elena rose from her shooting position with fluid efficiency, ejecting the spent cartridge and ensuring the chamber was clear before stepping back from the firing line. The brass casing clinked against concrete, the small sound seeming unnaturally loud in the continued silence that had settled over the range. Nash approached her position, his weathered face showing the first signs of genuine curiosity rather than professional skepticism. 17 pairs of eyes tracked Elena's movements as she conducted her post-shooting routine, checking the rifle's condition and preparing to return it to the equipment sergeant. Hendricks stood frozen near the rear of the group, his mouth slightly open as he processed what he'd witnessed. The easy confidence he displayed throughout the morning had evaporated, replaced by the uncomfortable realization that his assumptions about Elena's capabilities had been completely wrong. Nash stopped directly in front of Elena, his pale blue eyes studying her face for any sign of surprise or excitement about her achievement. She met his gaze steadily, her expression maintaining the same neutral professionalism she'd shown since arriving at the Corps 6 weeks earlier. That was a difficult shot, Staff Sergeant Vasquez, he said, his voice carrying a note of genuine respect that hadn't been present during his earlier interactions with candidates. Elena nodded once, acknowledging the comment without elaboration. The wind pattern was complex, but manageable, she replied, her tone suggesting that 1,200-meter shots with variable crosswinds were routine rather than exceptional. Her understated response drew sharp glances from several candidates who had struggled with shots half that distance under ideal conditions. Rodriguez stepped closer, his decorated Marine bearing unable to mask his curiosity about Elena's performance. "I've been shooting long range for 8 years," he said, his voice carrying the authority of combat experience. That particular combination of wind and distance, with moving targets, that's expert-level difficulty. His statement hung in the morning air like a challenge, inviting Elena to explain her obvious competence. Elena handed the rifle to the equipment sergeant, ensuring the weapon was properly secured before responding to Rodriguez's implied question. "Every shot has its own requirements," she said simply. "Understanding the variables and applying proper technique usually produces acceptable results." Her matter-of-fact tone suggested that exceptional marksmanship was merely a matter of following established procedures rather than displaying extraordinary skill. The equipment sergeant examined the rifle Elena had returned, noting its pristine condition and proper handling. This particular weapon had been assigned to her specifically because of its challenging characteristics, requiring significant adjustments for optimal performance. Nash had selected it deliberately, expecting that an unfamiliar rifle would contribute to Elena's anticipated failure. Instead, she had adapted to its unique properties and achieved a perfect score. Nash consulted his tablet, reviewing the morning's results with growing bewilderment. 8 consecutive misses from experienced candidates, followed by Elena's flawless performance under identical conditions. The statistical improbability of her success suggested either extraordinary luck or capabilities far beyond what her personnel file indicated. His training and experience told him that luck played no role in precision shooting at extreme ranges. Chun approached Elena with the analytical directness that characterized her personality throughout the course. "Your breathing pattern was different from the other shooters," she observed, engineer's mind cataloging the technical differences she'd noticed. "You held position much longer before engaging, and your follow-through was textbook perfect. Can you explain your preparation sequence?" Elena considered Chin's question carefully, recognizing the genuine professional interest behind it. "Patience eliminates variables," she replied after a moment. "Rushing the shot introduces human error into a process that requires mechanical precision. The target presents itself according to a predetermined pattern. Waiting for optimal conditions within that pattern improves probability of success." Morrison joined the growing circle around Elena, his initial skepticism replaced by professional curiosity. "The wind reading looked impossible from my position," he admitted, his honesty reflecting the humility that combat experience often teaches. "How did you account for the variable conditions at different ranges?" "Most of us were guessing about the far-end compensation." Elena's response demonstrated the depth of knowledge that had enabled her success. Near flag indicated 8 knots from the left. Middle showed 12 knots quartering right. Far flag suggested 15 knots with periodic gusts. She recited with scientific precision. The bullet path required 3 distinct compensation calculations, accounting for changing drift characteristics as velocity decreased over distance. Nash listened to Elena's technical explanation with growing interest, recognizing that her understanding of ballistics exceeded what was typically taught in standard marksmanship courses. Her terminology and analytical approach suggested advanced training that wasn't reflected in her official military occupational specialty. His curiosity about her background began to outweigh his surprise about her shooting performance. The other candidates continued gathering around Elena, their initial dismissive attitudes replaced by genuine respect for her demonstrated competence. Hendricks remained notably quiet, still processing the collapse of his confident predictions about her inevitable failure. His betting partners from earlier conversations had also fallen silent, reconsidering their assessments of Elena's capabilities. Nash announced that the morning's demonstration was complete, but several candidates continued their informal discussion with Elena about shooting techniques and training methods. She answered their questions with the same professional courtesy she'd shown throughout the course, providing detailed explanations without revealing the source of her extensive knowledge. Rodriguez asked about her previous assignments, curious about where she developed such advanced skills. Elena's response remained appropriately vague, mentioning conventional training programs without discussing specialized schools or classified instruction. Her personnel file, if Rodriguez had access to it, would show a series of routine assignments that provided no explanation for her exceptional performance. Chun inquired about practice routines and training frequency, seeking to understand how Elena had achieved such precision under pressure. "Every shot is practice," Elena replied, suggesting that her approach to marksmanship extended beyond formal range time. Maintaining proficiency requires constant attention to fundamentals, regardless of the shooting environment or target difficulty. Nash observed these interactions with professional interest, noting how Elena's responses demonstrated competence without revealing specifics about her background or training history. Her ability to perform the impossible shot while maintaining operational security suggested a level of discipline that exceeded standard military training. His next step would be reviewing her complete personnel file to understand what he'd missed during the initial candidate evaluation process. Nash dismissed the other candidates for their midday break, but gestured for Elena to remain behind as the group dispersed toward the mess hall. The morning heat had intensified, creating shimmering waves across the 1,000-meter range where her impossible shot had silenced 17 skeptics. She stood at attention beside the equipment table, waiting for whatever questions or comments Nash felt compelled to address privately. The equipment sergeant finished securing the rifles and departed, leaving Nash and Elena alone on the concrete platform. Nash consulted his tablet again, scrolling through Elena's personnel file with the methodical attention of someone seeking information that should be present but wasn't. Her records showed standard infantry training, conventional assignments, routine performance evaluations that provided no explanation for the expertise she'd just demonstrated. "Staff Sergeant Vasquez," Nash began, his voice carrying the weight of 23 years in special operations, "that shot you made this morning represents capabilities that typically require specialized training. Advanced sniper schools, long-range reconnaissance courses, programs that don't appear anywhere in your official record." He paused, studying her face for any reaction that might provide insight into her actual background. Elena maintained her professional composure, recognizing the careful phrasing Nash had chosen for his inquiry. "My training has been adequate for the requirements of my assigned duties, sir," she replied, providing accurate information without revealing details that remained classified above Nash's clearance level. The fundamentals of marksmanship remained consistent regardless of range or environmental conditions. Nash appreciated Elena's diplomatic response while recognizing that it answered his question without providing the information he actually sought. Her ability to navigate sensitive inquiries suggested experience with operational security protocols that weren't taught in conventional military schools. His growing suspicion that Elena's background contained elements not reflected in her standard personnel file required more direct investigation. The other candidates had performed exactly as Nash expected, their failures confirming his assessment of their capabilities and training levels. Morrison's combat experience provided solid fundamentals, but lacked the advanced techniques required for extreme range precision. Chen's analytical approach yielded consistent results within her training parameters, but couldn't bridge the gap to expert-level performance. Rodriguez's confidence exceeded his actual skills by a measurable margin. Elena's flawless execution of an impossible shot represented an anomaly that demanded explanation. Nash had administered this particular test to over 200 candidates during his tenure as chief instructor, witnessing only 3 successful completions prior to Elena's demonstration. Those 3 successes had come from candidates whose files clearly documented specialized sniper training and combat deployment records. Your approach to the wind reading was particularly sophisticated, Nash continued, probing for additional information about Elena's technical knowledge. The three-stage compensation calculation you described isn't taught in standard marksmanship courses. Most candidates learn simplified methods that work adequately for conventional ranges, but break down under complex conditions like this morning's exercise. Elena acknowledged Nash's observation with a slight nod, recognizing his expertise while maintaining appropriate boundaries around sensitive information. Complex problems often require detailed solutions, sir, she said. Understanding the physics involved allows for more precise calculations than relying on simplified approximations or guesswork under challenging conditions. Nash's respect for Elena's professional discretion increased even as his curiosity about her background intensified. Her responses demonstrated intelligence and training while providing no actionable intelligence about the source of her capabilities. Someone had taught her operational security principles that went well beyond standard military protocols, suggesting involvement with programs that operated under different classification levels. The conversation was interrupted by the approach of Master Sergeant Williams, Nash's senior assistant, who carried additional documentation that had arrived during the morning's exercise. "Sir," he said, addressing Nash while glancing curiously at Elena, "Headquarters forwarded some additional personnel information that might be relevant to your current evaluation process." Nash accepted the sealed envelope Williams offered, noting the security markings that indicated contents requiring special handling procedures. Elena remained at attention, her expression unchanged despite her obvious awareness that the documentation likely pertained to her background. Williams departed without comment, leaving Nash to examine whatever information had been provided by higher headquarters. The envelope contained a single sheet of official letterhead with minimal text and several security stamps that Nash recognized from his own clearance documentation. The message was brief and direct, instructing him to contact a specific telephone number for additional information about Staff Sergeant Vasquez's qualifications and training history. No explanation was provided for the unusual communication method or the security protocols involved. Nash folded the document and returned it to its envelope, his expression revealing nothing about its contents to Elena. "Staff Sergeant," he said, his tone shifting to reflect new information that changed his understanding of the situation. "It appears that some aspects of your background require clarification through official channels. You're dismissed for the remainder of today's training cycle." Elena saluted crisply and departed, leaving Nash alone with questions that couldn't be answered through normal personnel databases or standard military records. The telephone number on the official letterhead suggested connections to programs that operated outside conventional command structures, explaining Elena's exceptional capabilities while raising new questions about her presence in his training course. Nash walked to his office and closed the door before dialing the number provided in the headquarters communication. The voice that answered identified itself with a code designation rather than a name or unit, immediately confirming Nash's suspicion that Elena's true background involved classified operations beyond his current knowledge. "Commander Nash," the voice said, anticipating his call, "we understand you have questions about Staff Sergeant Vasquez's qualifications. Her performance today was entirely consistent with her actual training level, though that information hasn't been reflected in her standard personnel file for operational security reasons." Nash listened as the voice provided carefully selected details about Elena's background, explaining her presence in his course without revealing specifics that remained classified above his clearance level. The information answered his immediate questions while confirming that Elena's modest demeanor had concealed capabilities developed through programs he could only imagine. The call concluded with instructions for Elena's continued participation in the advanced course, along with guidelines for handling any questions from other candidates about her exceptional performance. Nash understood that Elena's secret would remain protected while her training continued, though his own perspective on her capabilities had been permanently transformed by the morning's impossible shot. The afternoon session convened with Nash announcing an additional challenge that hadn't appeared on the original training schedule. The morning's unexpected result had prompted him to design a follow-up exercise that would either confirm Elena's capabilities or reveal them as an extraordinary stroke of luck. 17 candidates reassembled on the range, their earlier skepticism about Elena replaced by curious attention and barely concealed anticipation. Nash positioned himself at the center of the group, his tablet displaying target configurations that made several candidates exchange worried glances. "This exercise requires 3 sequential shots at different ranges," he announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had designed countless tests of marksmanship skill. 600 meters, 900 meters, and 1,200 meters. Moving targets at each distance. Time limit of 8 minutes for all 3 engagements. Hendricks studied the distant target areas through binoculars, his earlier confidence about Elena's inevitable failure now tempered by the memory of her flawless morning performance. "The targets are smaller than regulation size," he observed to Rodriguez, who had positioned himself nearby for a better view of the challenge parameters. "This is going to separate the real shooters from everyone else." Elena stood quietly near the rear of the group, listening to the discussion without contributing her own assessment of the exercise difficulty. The multiple range requirement would test not only shooting accuracy, but also the ability to rapidly recalculate ballistics for changing distances while maintaining precision under time pressure. She had performed similar exercises before, but never under such intense scrutiny from fellow candidates. Chen approached Elena during the briefing, her engineer's mind already processing the technical challenges involved in the new exercise. "The ballistic calculations alone will consume significant time," she said, speaking quietly to avoid drawing attention from other candidates. "Most of us will struggle with the rapid adjustments required between different range distances." Elena nodded in acknowledgement of Chen's observation, while keeping her own assessment private. The exercise was demanding, but not impossible for someone with appropriate training and experience. The time limit would force rapid decision-making, but 8 minutes provided adequate opportunity for careful shooting if candidates avoided wasting time on unnecessary preparation or excessive deliberation. Nash began calling candidates forward in the same order as the morning session, starting with Morrison's second attempt at proving his capabilities. The broad-shouldered Marine approached the firing line with determination, clearly hoping to redeem his earlier miss with a successful performance on the more complex challenge. He settled into position behind the rifle with practiced efficiency, beginning his range estimation and wind reading sequence. Morrison's first shot at 600 meters struck the target zone, earning an approving nod from Nash and scattered applause from fellow candidates. His confidence visibly increased as he adjusted his scope for the 900-meter engagement, taking additional time to ensure proper compensation for the increased range and changing wind conditions. The second shot missed by several inches, frustration evident in his body language as he prepared for the final attempt. The 1,200-meter shot proved beyond Morrison's capabilities, his bullet striking low and left to the target area. He cleared his weapon and stepped back from the firing line, his expression showing disappointment, but not surprise at the partial failure. 1 hit out of 3 represented typical performance for the advanced exercise, confirming Nash's assessment that the challenge separated exceptional shooters from merely competent ones. Chen approached the firing line with her characteristic analytical focus, spending considerable time studying the target areas and environmental conditions before settling into shooting position. Her methodical approach consumed nearly 3 minutes of preparation time, leaving limited opportunity for careful shooting at each range. The time pressure began affecting her performance immediately, forcing rushed calculations that introduced errors into her normally precise technique. Chen managed to hit the 600-meter target but missed both longer-range shots, her analytical nature working against her under the artificial time constraints of the exercise. She departed the firing line with obvious frustration, recognizing that her technical knowledge hadn't translated into successful performance under pressure. Nash made notes on his tablet, documenting another typical result for the challenging exercise. Rodriguez stepped forward with renewed determination, his morning observation of Elena's capabilities having motivated him to push beyond his previous performance levels. He had spent the lunch break reviewing wind reading techniques and practicing his range estimation procedures, hoping to improve his chances of success on the multiple target challenge. His preparation showed in his confident approach to the firing line. The first two shots from Rodriguez demonstrated improved technique, striking both the 600 and 900-meter targets with acceptable accuracy. His confidence built as he prepared for the final 1,200-meter engagement, the same distance where Elena had achieved her impossible morning success. He settled into position with careful attention to his breathing pattern and trigger control, determined to match her earlier performance. Rodriguez's final shot missed the target completely, his bullet disappearing into the hillside without making contact with the scoring zone. His shoulders sagged with disappointment as he realized that even improved technique hadn't been sufficient to master the extreme range challenge. 2 hits out of 3 represented his best performance to date, but fell short of the exceptional standard Elena had established. Hendricks approached the firing line with visible reluctance, his earlier betting confidence having evaporated completely after witnessing Elena's morning demonstration. He had avoided making predictions about his own performance, recognizing that the multiple target exercise represented a level of difficulty that exceeded his training and experience. His preparation was rushed and nervous, clearly anticipating failure rather than success. The result from Hendricks confirmed his pessimistic expectations, managing only 1 hit at the shortest range before missing both longer-distance targets. He departed the firing line quickly, eager to remove himself from the center of attention and avoid further embarrassment. Nash documented the failure without comment, adding another typical result to his growing database of candidate performance under extreme conditions. Nash called Elena forward as the final shooter, her turn arriving amid an atmosphere of intense curiosity about whether she could repeat her morning success under even more demanding conditions. The 17 other candidates positioned themselves for optimal viewing, clearly expecting either spectacular success or dramatic failure. Elena walked to the firing line with the same calm professionalism she had displayed throughout the course. Elena accepted the rifle from the equipment sergeant, conducting her standard inspection routine while 17 candidates positioned themselves for optimal viewing of her performance. The afternoon sun had shifted position, creating different shadows and light conditions that would affect her target acquisition at each range. She noted these changes methodically, integrating them into her tactical assessment along with wind patterns and atmospheric density variations. Nash announced the start of Elena's 8-minute time limit, beginning the countdown that had proven insufficient for most candidates to complete all 3 required engagements successfully. Elena settled into shooting position with fluid efficiency, her movements economical and purposeful as she prepared for the 600-meter target. The familiar alignment process took less than 30 seconds, leaving maximum time for the more challenging longer-range shots. The first target appeared on schedule, moving from left to right across the orange panel at the 600-meter line. Elena tracked its movement smoothly, her crosshairs settling on the calculated intercept point with mechanical precision. The shot broke cleanly, followed immediately by the spotter's confirmation of a center mass hit. Several candidates nodded approvingly, recognizing solid technique even as they wondered whether she could maintain that precision at extended ranges. Elena immediately began adjusting her scope for the 900-meter engagement, her fingers working the turrets with practiced efficiency while monitoring wind flags for changes in environmental conditions. The middle-distance shot required different calculations than the opening engagement, accounting for increased bullet drop and wind drift over the extended flight path. She completed the scope adjustment in less than 60 seconds, leaving ample time for the remaining 2 shots. Hendricks whispered to Rodriguez that Elena's rapid scope adjustments suggested extensive familiarity with the equipment, noting that most candidates required several minutes to properly configure their optics for different ranges. Rodriguez nodded in agreement, observing that Elena's movements showed the kind of muscle memory that came from countless repetitions under varied conditions. Neither man could explain how she had developed such expertise without it appearing in her personnel records. The 900-meter target presented itself according to the predetermined pattern, requiring Elena to engage a faster-moving silhouette with increased lead time and wind compensation. She tracked the target smoothly, her breathing cycle reaching the natural pause as her finger applied steady pressure to the trigger. The shot echoed across the range, followed 3 seconds later by another center mass confirmation from spotter. Nash checked his stopwatch, noting that Elena had completed 2 successful engagements in less than 4 minutes, leaving adequate time for the most challenging 1,200-meter shot that had defeated every other candidate except during her morning demonstration. The approaching final engagement carried additional significance, representing her opportunity to prove that the morning's success wasn't an isolated occurrence, but rather evidence of consistent capability. Elena's preparation for the final shot demonstrated the same methodical approach that had characterized her earlier performances, though the scope adjustments required for 1,200-meter engagement were more complex than those needed for shorter ranges. She worked the turrets with mathematical precision, calculating exact clicks needed to compensate for the extreme bullet drop and variable wind conditions affecting the longest shot of the day. Chun observed Elena's technical approach with professional fascination, recognizing advanced ballistic knowledge in her systematic scope adjustments and environmental assessment. The calculations required for accurate 1,200-meter shooting exceeded what was taught in standard military marksmanship courses, suggesting specialized training that wasn't reflected in Elena's official military occupational specialty. Chen's engineering background allowed her to appreciate the complexity of the mathematics involved. Morrison positioned himself where he could observe Elena's shooting form during the final engagement, curious about the subtle differences that enabled her success where others failed. Her body position appeared identical to standard shooting techniques, but her breathing pattern and follow-through showed refinements that spoke to advanced instruction. He had observed similar attention to detail among special operations snipers during his combat deployments. The 1,200-meter target area shimmered in the afternoon heat, creating mirage effects that would challenge even experienced shooters' ability to maintain precise sight picture. Elena studied the target zone through her scope, noting the heat distortion patterns and adjusting her point of aim accordingly. The final target would present the same challenging movement pattern that had enabled her morning success, requiring identical precision under different lighting conditions. Nash announced 2 minutes remaining in Elena's time limit, though she appeared unconcerned about the approaching deadline. Her preparation continued at the same deliberate pace she had maintained throughout the exercise, suggesting confidence that adequate time remained for the final shot. The other candidates recognized her composure under time pressure as another indicator of advanced training and extensive experience. Elena's final breathing cycle began as the target area showed signs of the approaching silhouette presentation. Her heart rate had settled into the optimal range for precision shooting, while her grip pressure and sight alignment achieved the perfect consistency that preceded successful long-range engagements. The crosshairs held steady on the calculated intercept point, waiting for the target to enter the engagement window. The silhouette appeared exactly on schedule, beginning its traverse across the orange panel with the mechanical precision of computer-controlled timing. Elena's tracking movement was smooth and continuous, her crosshairs maintaining perfect alignment with a moving target while her mind processed final wind calculations and lead time adjustments. The trigger broke at the optimal moment, releasing the shot with surgical timing. The bullet's supersonic crack echoed across the range, followed by the whisper of its passage through afternoon air toward the distant target. Elena maintained her shooting position, scope focused on the impact area while the projectile completed its 1,200-meter journey. Behind her, 17 candidates held their breath, waiting for the spotter's call that would determine whether Elena had achieved the unprecedented accomplishment of perfect scores on all 3 engagements. 3 seconds of absolute silence preceded the spotter's announcement. Hit, center mass, perfect placement. His voice carried a note of professional admiration as he confirmed Elena's third consecutive successful engagement within the 8-minute time limit. The gathered candidates erupted in spontaneous applause, recognizing an exceptional demonstration of marksmanship skill that exceeded anything they had witnessed during their military careers. Nash stopped his timer and approached Elena's position, his expression showing genuine respect for her unprecedented performance. 3 perfect shots at 3 different ranges within 6 minutes and 47 seconds, he announced to the assembled group. That represents the finest demonstration of precision marksmanship I've observed in 23 years of military service. Elena rose from her shooting position with characteristic modesty, accepting the recognition while maintaining her professional demeanor. The evening briefing convened with an atmosphere of anticipation that hadn't existed during previous sessions. Elena's afternoon performance had transformed the entire group perception of what was possible within the advanced marksmanship course, while simultaneously raising questions about her background that couldn't be answered through normal channels. Nash entered the briefing room carrying classified documentation that would reshape everyone's understanding of the training program's true purpose. 17 candidates occupied their assigned seats, but their attention focused primarily on Elena rather than the instructional materials displayed on the briefing room screens. Conversations buzzed with speculation about her training history, combat experience, and specialized schools that might explain her extraordinary capabilities. Morrison had spent the dinner hour researching advanced sniper programs, trying to identify where Elena might have developed such exceptional skills. Nash called the room to attention and began his prepared briefing about the final phase of the advanced course. Though his words carried additional weight, given the afternoon's unprecedented demonstration of precision marksmanship. Tomorrow's exercise will test capabilities beyond anything you've experienced during the previous 6 weeks, he announced, his voice reflecting the gravity of what lay ahead for the remaining candidates. The wall screens displayed target configurations that made several candidates shift uncomfortably in their seats. Multiple moving targets at varying ranges, environmental obstacles, including smoke and limited visibility, time pressure that would challenge even experienced combat veterans. Elena studied the briefing materials with the same professional attention she'd shown throughout the course, though her expression suggested familiarity with similar challenges rather than concern about their difficulty. Chun raised her hand to ask about the technical specifications of the final exercise, her engineer's mind seeking to understand the precise parameters that would determine success or failure. Nash provided detailed explanations about target presentation timing, scoring criteria, and environmental variables that would affect shooting conditions. The complexity of the challenge exceeded anything typically encountered in conventional military training. Rodriguez inquired about the historical success rate for the final exercise, curious about how previous candidates had performed under such demanding conditions. Nash's response was sobering. In 3 years of administering this particular test, only 7 candidates had achieved passing scores. 4 of those 7 possessed specialized sniper training documented in their personnel files. The remaining 3 had backgrounds that couldn't be discussed due to classification restrictions. Hendricks asked about equipment specifications for the final exercise, wondering whether candidates would use familiar rifles or be required to adapt to different weapons systems under pressure. Nash explained that weapon selection would be randomized, forcing candidates to demonstrate proficiency with unfamiliar equipment while maintaining precision under extreme conditions. Elena's afternoon performance with an unknown rifle had already proven her adaptability in this area. Nash dismissed the group for evening preparation time, but requested that Elena remain behind for additional discussion about the following day's exercise. The other candidates departed with obvious curiosity about what special instructions or information Elena might receive, though Nash's expression suggested the conversation would involve official rather than training-related matters. Elena remained seated as the briefing room emptied, waiting for whatever discussion Nash felt necessary to conduct privately. His earlier telephone conversation had clearly provided information that changed his understanding of her background, though the specific details remained classified above her need to know. She recognized the careful balance required when official secrets intersected with training environments. Nash closed the briefing room door and activated the security measures that prevented electronic surveillance of their conversation. Staff Sergeant Vasquez, he began, his tone reflecting newfound respect for her actual qualifications. Today's performance has raised questions that go beyond normal training evaluation procedures. Your capabilities suggest experience and instruction that isn't reflected in your standard military records. Elena maintained her professional composure while acknowledging Nash's carefully phrased observation. "Sir, my training has prepared me for the requirements of my assigned duties," she replied, providing accurate information without revealing details that remained protected by security classifications. The fundamentals of marksmanship remain consistent regardless of the specific training environment or instructional methods employed. Nash appreciated Elena's diplomatic response, while recognizing that it confirmed his suspicions about her background without providing actionable intelligence. The telephone conversation with headquarters had revealed enough information to explain her exceptional performance, while emphasizing the continued importance of operational security regarding her true qualifications and training history. The discussion continued for 20 minutes, with Nash providing Elena with additional details about the final exercise that weren't included in the general briefing. The advanced warning would allow her to prepare more effectively, though her performance suggested that preparation might be unnecessary given her obvious expertise. Nash's growing respect for her capabilities was tempered by curiosity about the programs that had produced such exceptional skills. Elena departed the briefing room with instructions to report early the following morning for final equipment preparation and course familiarization. Nash remained behind, reviewing the classified documentation that had arrived throughout the day and contemplating the unusual situation of having a candidate whose true capabilities exceeded those of her instructors. The evening preparation period found most candidates studying target charts and practicing dry-fire exercises with their personal weapons, hoping to improve their chances of success during the final examination. Elena spent her time differently, conducting physical preparation routines and mental rehearsal techniques that reflected training methods not taught in conventional military schools. Chin approached Elena during the preparation period, seeking advice about the technical challenges they would face during the final exercise. Elena provided general guidance about shooting fundamentals and stress management, carefully avoiding any references to specialized techniques or advanced training methods that might reveal her actual background. Her responses remained helpful while maintaining appropriate security boundaries. Morrison expressed his admiration for Elena's afternoon performance and inquired about her plans following completion of the advanced course. Elena's response was appropriately vague, mentioning routine assignments and continuing education opportunities without providing specific details about her future duties or deployment schedules. The conversation remained friendly while revealing nothing significant about her actual military career path. Rodriguez asked Elena for her assessment of the final exercise difficulty, curious about her perspective on the challenges they would face during the culminating test. Elena acknowledged that the exercise would be demanding, but expressed confidence that proper preparation and sound technique would enable success for candidates with adequate training and experience. Her understated assessment contrasted sharply with the anxiety displayed by most other candidates. Hendricks approached Elena near the end of the preparation period, his earlier skepticism completely replaced by genuine respect for her demonstrated capabilities. He apologized for his morning comments and betting behavior, recognizing that his assumptions about her qualifications had been completely unfounded. Elena accepted his apology graciously, demonstrating the professionalism that had characterized her interactions throughout the course. Dawn arrived with unusual clarity, the morning air crisp and still as 18 candidates assembled for the final exercise that would determine their completion of the advanced marksmanship course. Elena stood among the group, her calm demeanor contrasting sharply with the visible tension displayed by fellow candidates who understood that the day's performance would define their military careers. Nash observed the assembled group with professional satisfaction, recognizing that 6 weeks of intensive training had brought them to this decisive moment. The equipment tables displayed an array of weapon systems that most candidates had never encountered, ranging from precision rifles with advanced optics to older military surplus firearms that would challenge their adaptability under pressure. Nash explained that weapon assignments would be randomized, eliminating any advantage that might come from familiarity with specific equipment. Elena studied the available rifles with professional interest, noting characteristics that would affect performance during the complex exercise ahead. Rodriguez examined the target area through binoculars, his expression growing increasingly concerned as he identified the obstacles and challenges that would complicate their shooting during the final test. Smoke generators positioned at strategic intervals would create visibility problems, while multiple target presentations at varying ranges would demand rapid adaptation and precise ballistic calculations. The exercise represented the culmination of everything they had learned during 6 weeks of advanced instruction. Chun approached Elena during the equipment familiarization period, seeking reassurance about the technical complexity of the challenges they would face. Elena provided encouragement while avoiding specific tactical advice that might reveal her advanced training, maintaining the careful balance between helpfulness and operational security that had characterized her interactions throughout the course. Her confidence remained steady despite the obvious difficulty of the upcoming exercise. Nash announced the shooting order, beginning with Morrison and proceeding through the group alphabetically before concluding with Elena's performance. The sequence would allow her to observe 17 attempts before taking her own turn, providing opportunities to study environmental conditions and target presentation patterns. Several candidates recognized the potential advantage of shooting last, though Elena's previous performances suggested she needed no such benefits. Morrison stepped forward to receive his randomly assigned rifle, accepting a weapon system he had never used before with visible apprehension. The unfamiliar equipment would force him to adapt his shooting technique while managing the stress of the final examination, creating additional challenges beyond the already demanding target scenarios. His preparation time began immediately, allowing 30 minutes for weapon familiarization and range estimation before the exercise commenced. The target complex stretched across varied terrain that would test multiple shooting skills simultaneously, incorporating elevation changes, wind patterns, and obstacle courses that reflected realistic combat conditions. Elena observed Morrison's preparation routine with professional interest, noting his systematic approach to equipment familiarization and environmental assessment. His methodical technique demonstrated solid training, though the exercise difficulty exceeded his previous experience levels. Chun received her weapon assignment next, drawing a precision rifle with optics that required significant adjustment to match her physical dimensions and shooting preferences. The 30-minute preparation period would force her to balance equipment configuration with environmental study, limiting the time available for either critical preparation element. Elena watched Chen's analytical approach to the challenge, recognizing her engineering mindset in the systematic evaluation of variables. Rodriguez approached his weapon assignment with determination, accepting an older rifle that would demand manual adjustments for range and windage compensation. The lack of advanced optics would force him to rely on fundamental marksmanship skills while calculating ballistic solutions under time pressure. His combat experience provided confidence in basic shooting techniques, though the exercise complexity surpassed anything he had encountered during operational deployments. Hendricks drew perhaps the most challenging weapon assignment, receiving a rifle with minimal accessories that would require exceptional skill to achieve acceptable accuracy at extended ranges. His earlier skepticism about Elena's capabilities had been replaced by grudging respect, though his own prospects for success remained limited by training and experience gaps that 6 weeks couldn't completely address. Elena observed his nervous preparation with professional sympathy. Nash provided final briefing updates about environmental conditions and safety procedures, emphasizing the importance of following established protocols despite the competitive pressure of the final examination. Wind patterns had shifted during the morning hours, creating additional variables that would affect long-range shooting accuracy. Elena integrated this information into her tactical assessment, while maintaining her characteristic calm professionalism. The first candidate began his exercise attempt, with Morrison advancing through the course under direct observation from Nash and the scoring officials. His performance demonstrated solid technique within his training limitations, achieving partial success on several target engagements while failing to complete the more challenging long-range shots. The exercise difficulty became immediately apparent as Morrison struggled with environmental factors that exceeded his experience level. Chin's attempt followed Morrison's mixed results, her analytical approach providing advantages in some areas while creating delays that affected her overall performance timing. She achieved better success with medium-range targets, but encountered significant difficulties with the longest-distance shots that required advanced ballistic calculations. Elena observed each candidate's performance carefully, noting the consistent pattern of partial success that characterized most attempts. Rodriguez demonstrated improved technique during his exercise attempt, his combat experience enabling better stress management than previous candidates had shown. His success rate exceeded expectations for several target engagements, though the most challenging shots remained beyond his capabilities despite his determination and preparation efforts. The exercise continued to prove its effectiveness in separating exceptional shooters from merely competent ones. Hendricks struggled significantly with his assigned equipment, the limited accessories creating obstacles that his training hadn't prepared him to overcome. His performance reinforced the pattern of partial success that had characterized most candidates, confirming Nash's assessment that the exercise identified truly exceptional capabilities rather than rewarding adequate preparation. Elena's upcoming attempt carried additional significance as the final demonstration of skills that had already proven extraordinary. The morning hours progressed with consistent results that validated Nash's exercise design, each candidate achieving some measure of success while falling short of complete mastery. Elena's observations provided insights into environmental conditions and target presentation patterns, though her previous performances suggested such advantages were unnecessary given her obvious expertise. The approaching climax of the final exercise would determine whether her exceptional capabilities extended beyond the specific challenges she had already mastered. Nash announced a brief break before Elena's final attempt, allowing time for equipment preparation and range safety checks that would ensure optimal conditions for the culminating performance. The 17 other candidates positioned themselves for optimal viewing, their earlier skepticism completely replaced by curiosity about whether Elena could maintain her perfect record under the most demanding conditions yet presented. The stage was set for a demonstration that would define the conclusion of 6 weeks of intensive training. Elena stepped forward to receive her randomly assigned weapon, accepting the rifle that would determine her performance during the most challenging exercise of the 6-week course. The equipment sergeant handed her a precision rifle with minimal accessories, similar to the challenging configuration that had defeated several previous candidates. Elena conducted her standard inspection routine, checking the action and scope while noting the weapon's specific characteristics and limitations. Nash announced Elena's 30-minute preparation period, beginning the countdown that would allow her to familiarize herself with the unfamiliar equipment while studying the environmental conditions that had affected all previous shooters. Elena began her systematic assessment immediately, working through scope adjustments and equipment configurations with a methodical efficiency that had characterized her approach throughout the course. The 17 other candidates positioned themselves around the observation area, their conversations filled with speculation about Elena's chances for success under the most demanding conditions yet presented. Morrison expressed confidence in her abilities based on her previous performances, while Chen wondered whether the exercise complexity might finally exceed even Elena's exceptional capabilities. Rodriguez remained quiet, studying Elena's preparation routine for insights into advanced techniques. Elena's equipment familiarization proceeded with mechanical precision, her movements demonstrating familiarity with similar weapon systems despite never having used this particular rifle. She adjusted the scope for optimal eye relief and sight picture, tested the trigger pull weight and reset characteristics, and evaluated the bipod stability under different shooting positions. The 30-minute preparation period provided adequate time for complete equipment mastery. The target complex stretched across terrain that incorporated every challenging element encountered during the 6-week course, combining long-range precision shots with rapid target acquisition and environmental obstacles that would test multiple skill sets simultaneously. Elena studied the course layout through binoculars, noting target placement patterns and environmental factors that would affect her shooting accuracy. Her assessment revealed tactical considerations that previous candidates had missed. Wind flags positioned throughout the target area indicated complex atmospheric conditions that would require sophisticated ballistic calculations for successful long-range engagements. Elena observed the flag patterns for several minutes, identifying wind direction changes and velocity variations that would affect bullet trajectories at different ranges. Her analysis demonstrated understanding of environmental factors that exceeded standard military training. Nash provided final safety briefings and course instructions, emphasizing the importance of following established protocols while maintaining the aggressive pace required for successful completion. The exercise demanded both speed and precision, forcing candidates to balance careful shooting technique with time management under pressure. Elena listened to the instructions with professional attention while continuing her environmental assessment. The smoke generators activated according to schedule, creating visibility challenges that would complicate target acquisition throughout the exercise. Elena noted the smoke patterns and dispersion rates, calculating how the reduced visibility would affect her sight picture at various target locations. Her preparation demonstrated consideration of factors that previous candidates had encountered only after beginning their shooting sequences. Hendricks approached Elena during her final preparation minutes, seeking encouragement about his own performance and expressing admiration for her consistent excellence throughout the course. Elena provided supportive comments while maintaining focus on her own equipment and environmental preparation, demonstrating the professional courtesy that had characterized her interactions with fellow candidates. Her confidence remained steady despite the obvious exercise difficulty. Nash announced the final 5 minutes of Elena's preparation period, indicating that her exercise attempt would begin shortly. Elena completed her equipment checks and settled into her initial shooting position, conducting breathing exercises and mental rehearsal techniques that reflected advanced training and stress management. The 17 observing candidates fell silent, recognizing the significance of the approaching performance. The exercise parameters required Elena to engage targets at 4 different ranges while navigating obstacle courses and environmental challenges that would test her adaptability under pressure. Success demanded not only exceptional shooting accuracy, but also tactical movement and rapid decision-making that combined multiple skill sets. Elena's preparation suggested readiness for challenges that had defeated every previous candidate. Rodriguez observed Elena's final preparation routine with professional fascination, noting subtle differences in her approach that distinguished her technique from conventional military methods. Her breathing pattern, equipment handling, and mental preparation demonstrated refinements that spoke to specialized instruction beyond standard training programs. His combat experience allowed him to recognize advanced techniques without understanding their specific applications. Chun studied Elena's systematic approach to the exercise challenge, her engineering mind appreciating the methodical consideration of variables that would affect performance throughout the complex course. Elena's preparation time allocation demonstrated strategic thinking that balanced equipment familiarization with environmental assessment and physical preparation. Her approach suggested experience with similar challenges rather than first-time exposure to advanced testing. Morrison positioned himself where he could observe Elena's shooting technique during the exercise, curious about the specific elements that enabled her success where others struggled. Her previous performances had demonstrated capabilities that exceeded his own considerable experience, suggesting training and background that wasn't reflected in her official military records. The upcoming exercise would provide additional insights into her actual qualifications. Nash checked his timing equipment and prepared to begin Elena's exercise sequence, his expression showing professional interest in her performance under the most demanding conditions yet presented. The telephone conversation with headquarters had provided context for her exceptional capabilities while emphasizing the continued importance of operational security regarding her background. Her upcoming performance would either confirm or exceed the expectations created by that classified communication. Elena completed her final equipment adjustments and signaled her readiness to begin the exercise, her calm demeanor contrasting sharply with the visible tension that had characterized previous candidates. The 30-minute preparation period had provided adequate time for complete familiarization with equipment and conditions, though her previous performances suggested such preparation might be unnecessary given her obvious expertise. The target area fell silent as Nash prepared to initiate Elena's exercise sequence. 17 candidates holding their breath in anticipation of a performance that would conclude 6 weeks of intensive training. Environmental conditions remained challenging, with variable winds and reduced visibility creating obstacles that had contributed to the failure of every previous attempt. Elena's steady confidence suggested readiness for challenges that others had found insurmountable. Nash announced the beginning of Elena's exercise attempt, starting the timing sequence that would measure her performance against the most demanding standards of the advanced marksmanship course. Elena moved toward her first shooting position with fluid efficiency, her movements demonstrating tactical awareness and equipment handling that reflected extensive training and experience. The culminating test had begun. Elena approached the first shooting position with tactical precision, her movement through the course demonstrating situational awareness that exceeded conventional training standards. The exercise timer had begun its countdown, measuring her performance against criteria that had defeated 17 previous candidates throughout the morning hours. She settled into position behind her assigned rifle, conducting final equipment checks while smoke generators created visibility challenges across the target area. The first engagement required a 600-meter shot through variable smoke conditions, with moving targets that appeared according to computer-controlled timing sequences. Elena studied the target area through her scope, noting smoke density patterns and wind effects that would influence her ballistic calculations. Her preparation consumed exactly 45 seconds, demonstrating efficient time management that balanced accuracy requirements with course completion demands. Nash observed Elena's technique from the elevated platform, his professional eye noting subtle differences in her approach that distinguished her performance from previous candidates. Her breathing pattern had settled into the optimal rhythm for precision shooting, while her body position achieved perfect natural point of aim without conscious adjustment. The telephone conversation with headquarters had prepared him for exceptional performance, though witnessing her actual capabilities continued to exceed his expectations. Elena's first shot broke cleanly, the sound echoing across the range as her bullet began its journey toward the distant target. The smoke conditions created uncertainty about target visibility, forcing her to calculate precise timing for the moving silhouette presentation. 3 seconds later, the spotter's voice confirmed center mass impact, earning Elena her first successful engagement of the final exercise. 17 candidates watched Elena's performance with rapt attention, their earlier skepticism completely replaced by professional admiration for her demonstrated capabilities. Morrison noted her rapid transition to the second shooting position, observing tactical movement techniques that suggested specialized training in combat environments. Chun appreciated the mathematical precision of Elena's ballistic calculations, recognizing advanced knowledge that exceeded standard military instruction. The second engagement demanded a 900-meter shot from an awkward shooting position that would challenge even experienced marksmen. Elena adapted to the terrain constraints with fluid efficiency, finding stable shooting support despite the uncomfortable angle and limited equipment options. Her scope adjustments for the increased range were completed with mechanical precision, demonstrating familiarity with ballistic calculations that had challenged previous candidates. Rodriguez studied Elena's wind reading technique during her preparation for the 900-meter shot, noting her systematic evaluation of environmental indicators positioned throughout the target area. Her approach suggested understanding of atmospheric effects that went beyond conventional training, incorporating factors that most shooters never learn to consider. The complexity of her calculations impressed even experienced combat veterans among the observing candidates. Elena's second shot achieved another center mass hit, confirming her ability to maintain precision accuracy while managing the time pressure and equipment challenges that characterized the final exercise. Nash documented her performance with growing respect, recognizing that her capabilities exceeded those of any candidate he had observed during 3 years of administering the advanced course. The classified communication from headquarters had provided context without diminishing his amazement at her actual skills. The third shooting position required Elena to engage targets at 1,200 meters while navigating obstacle courses that simulated combat movement under fire. Her approach to the tactical challenges demonstrated training that wasn't reflected in her official military occupational specialty, suggesting background in specialized programs that operated under different classification levels. The observing candidates recognized advanced techniques without understanding their specific origins. Hendricks whispered to his companion that Elena's performance was unlike anything he had witnessed during his military career, noting that her capabilities seemed to exceed those of instructors who had trained them throughout the 6-week course. His earlier betting behavior now seemed embarrassingly inappropriate, given the obvious expertise she had concealed beneath her modest professional demeanor. The transformation of his opinion reflected the broader change in group perception. Elena settled into her final shooting position with the same calm professionalism that had characterized her performance throughout the exercise, despite facing the most challenging shot of the day under maximum time pressure. The 1,200-meter engagement required precise compensation for variable wind conditions while managing equipment limitations that had contributed to the failure of previous candidates. Her preparation demonstrated confidence that suggested familiarity with similar challenges. The target area shimmered with heat distortion that would complicate accurate sight picture acquisition, while smoke generators continued creating visibility obstacles throughout the course. Elena studied these conditions through her scope, making final adjustments to her point of aim while monitoring wind flags for changes in atmospheric patterns. Her methodical approach consumed optimal time without rushing the critical preparation sequence. Chun observed Elena's final ballistic calculations with professional fascination, recognizing the mathematical complexity required for successful engagement at extreme range under challenging environmental conditions. The computations exceeded what was taught in engineering courses, suggesting specialized instruction in advanced physics applications. Elena's mental processing speed impressed Chin's analytical mindset, while demonstrating capabilities that defied easy explanation. Morrison positioned himself for optimal observation of Elena's shooting form during the most demanding engagement of the final exercise, curious about the technical elements that enabled her consistent success. Her body position achieved perfect stability despite the challenging terrain, while her scope work demonstrated precision that spoke to extensive experience with similar equipment. His combat background allowed him to appreciate advanced techniques without understanding their specific training origins. Nash announced 30 seconds remaining in Elena's allotted time for the final exercise, though her calm demeanor suggested no concern about the approaching deadline. Her preparation continued at the same deliberate pace that had characterized her performance throughout the course, demonstrating confidence in her ability to complete the required engagement within available time. The pressure that had affected previous candidates seemed to have no impact on her professional composure. Elena's breathing cycle reached the optimal pause as the final target began its presentation sequence, her crosshairs settling on the calculated intercept point with mathematical precision. The trigger broke smoothly, releasing her shot at the exact moment when environmental conditions and target movement aligned for successful engagement. The sound echoed across the range as her bullet began its 1,200-meter journey toward the distant silhouette. The observing candidates held their breath during the 3-second flight time, waiting for the spotter's confirmation that would determine whether Elena had achieved the unprecedented accomplishment of perfect scores throughout the most challenging exercise in the advanced course. Nash prepared to document results that would either confirm or exceed the exceptional performance standards suggested by his classified communication with headquarters. The spotter's voice carried clearly across the morning air, announcing the result that would define Elena's completion of 6 weeks of intensive training. Hit, center mass, perfect placement. Time remaining, 8 seconds. The words seemed to hang in the stillness as 17 candidates processed the reality of witnessing the first perfect performance in the 3-year history of the final exercise. The spotter's confirmation echoed across the range like thunder, his professional voice unable to completely mask the amazement in his tone as he announced Elena's 3rd consecutive perfect hit. Elena remained in position for the required follow-throw period, her scope focused on the target area, while the reality of her unprecedented achievement began to register among the 17 witnesses who had gathered to observe what they expected to be another partial success. Nash checked his stopwatch and recording equipment, documenting performance statistics that would establish new standards for the advanced marksmanship course. Elena had completed the most challenging exercise in course history with perfect accuracy, while finishing 8 seconds under the time limit, achieving results that exceeded the capabilities of instructors who had designed the test. His respect for her abilities had grown throughout the morning, but witnessing the complete demonstration left him genuinely astounded. Elena rose from her shooting position with characteristic composure, conducting post-shooting procedures with the same methodical attention to detail that had marked her performance throughout the exercise. She cleared her weapon and secured the rifle according to established protocols, her professional demeanor unchanged despite accomplishing what previous candidates had considered impossible. The observing group remained silent, processing the magnitude of what they had witnessed. Morrison was the first to break the stunned silence, his voice carrying genuine admiration as he addressed Elena directly. "That was the finest demonstration of marksmanship I've witnessed in 15 years of military service," he said, his combat experience providing context for evaluating exceptional performance. 3 perfect shots under those conditions, with unfamiliar equipment and maximum time pressure, that represents mastery at a level I didn't know existed. Chin approached Elena with questions about the technical aspects of her performance, her analytical mind seeking to understand the mathematical precision that had enabled such flawless execution. "Your ballistic calculation for the variable wind conditions were extraordinarily sophisticated," she observed, her engineering background allowing her to appreciate the complexity involved. "How did you process so many environmental variables while maintaining accuracy under time pressure?" Elena's response demonstrated the same professional modesty that had characterized her interactions throughout the course, providing general explanations about shooting fundamentals without revealing the specialized training that had developed her exceptional capabilities. "Consistent technique and proper preparation usually produce acceptable results," she replied, understating the extraordinary nature of her achievement with typical diplomatic reserve. Rodriguez joined the growing circle around Elena, his own combat experience enabling him to recognize advanced skills when he witnessed them. "I've worked with some exceptional shooters during operational deployments," he said, his voice reflecting genuine respect, "but your performance today exceeded anything I've observed in the field. That level of precision under pressure requires training and experience that goes beyond conventional military programs." Hendricks approached Elena with obvious embarrassment about his earlier skeptical comments and betting behavior, recognizing that his assumptions about her capabilities had been completely unfounded. "Staff Sergeant," he said, his voice carrying sincere remorse, "I owe you an apology for my inappropriate remarks this morning. Your performance has been nothing short of extraordinary, and my behavior was unprofessional and disrespectful." Elena accepted Hendricks' apology with gracious professionalism, demonstrating the character that had impressed Nash throughout the 6-week course. Professional disagreements and competitive attitudes are natural in training environments, she replied, deflecting his embarrassment while maintaining the collegial relationships that would continue beyond the course completion. No offense was taken, and none should be carried forward. Nash gathered the complete group for the formal conclusion of the advanced marksmanship course, his prepared remarks requiring modification to address Elena's unprecedented performance. In 3 years of administering this final exercise, he announced to the assembled candidates, "I have witnessed only partial successes from even the most experienced shooters. Staff Sergeant Vasquez has achieved the first perfect score in course history." The formal recognition of Elena's achievement prompted spontaneous applause from the 17 other candidates, their earlier skepticism completely transformed into professional admiration and respect. Morrison led the recognition, followed immediately by Chun and Rodriguez, while even Hendricks contributed enthusiastic appreciation for her exceptional demonstration. The group dynamic had changed permanently, with Elena's quiet competence earning unanimous respect. Nash continued his closing remarks, addressing the broader lessons that Elena's performance provided for the entire group. Excellence in marksmanship requires dedication to fundamentals, consistent practice, and mental discipline that extends beyond technical knowledge, he explained, using Elena's achievement as an example of professional development principles. Staff Sergeant Vasquez has demonstrated these qualities throughout the course. Elena stood among her fellow candidates, accepting recognition while maintaining the modest professionalism that had characterized her approach throughout 6 weeks of intensive training. Her exceptional performance had silenced every skeptic and earned universal respect, though she continued to deflect attention from her individual achievement toward the collective learning experience that the course had provided for all participants. The equipment sergeant approached to collect Elena's rifle, noting its pristine condition despite the demanding exercise it had just completed. "Ma'am," he said, his voice reflecting the same amazement that had characterized everyone's reaction to her performance, "that weapon has been used by over 50 candidates during the past year. Nobody has achieved better than 70% accuracy with it until today. Your performance was absolutely flawless." Nash announced the administrative procedures that would conclude the course, including final documentation and certification processes that would reflect each candidate's performance throughout the 6-week program. Elena's records would show unprecedented achievement levels, though the specific details of her background would remain protected by the security classifications that had governed his earlier communication with headquarters. Chun requested permission to study Elena's target results, curious about the precise shot placement that had achieved perfect scores throughout the final exercise. Nash granted the request, allowing the group to examine the evidence of Elena's extraordinary accuracy. The target analysis revealed shot groups that exceeded professional standards, with bullet impacts clustered in optimal scoring zones despite the challenging conditions. Rodriguez asked Elena about her plans following course completion, expressing hope that their paths might cross again during future assignments or training opportunities. Elena's response remained appropriately vague about specific duties, while expressing appreciation for the professional relationships that had developed during their shared training experience. Her diplomatic reserve maintained operational security while acknowledging personal connections. Morrison approached Nash privately, seeking information about Elena's background that might explain her exceptional capabilities. Nash's response emphasized the classified nature of personnel information while acknowledging that Elena's performance had exceeded normal expectations for the course. The conversation reinforced the unusual circumstances surrounding Elena's participation while maintaining appropriate security boundaries. The formal conclusion of the advanced marksmanship course approached, with Elena's perfect performance having transformed the entire group's understanding of what was possible through dedication, training, and professional excellence. Her achievement would establish new standards for future candidates while providing lasting inspiration for the 17 witnesses who had observed her unprecedented demonstration of precision shooting under the most demanding conditions imaginable. Nash dismissed the group for final administrative processing, but requested that Elena accompany him to his office for the official course completion documentation that required special handling due to her extraordinary performance. The 17 other candidates departed with obvious curiosity about what additional recognition or information Elena might receive, though Nash's expression suggested the conversation would involve matters beyond normal training evaluation procedures. Elena followed Nash to his office, where he activated security measures and retrieved the classified documentation that had arrived throughout the week. Staff Sergeant Vasquez, he began, his tone reflecting the profound respect her performance had earned. Your achievement today concluded 6 weeks of the most impressive military training I've witnessed in 23 years of service. However, recent communications suggest your background contains elements that explain your exceptional capabilities. Nash opened the secured envelope he had received during Elena's afternoon demonstration 2 days earlier, revealing documents that authorized disclosure of information previously protected by security classifications. Elena maintained her professional composure while recognizing that her carefully maintained operational security was about to be adjusted according to official decisions made above her clearance level. The documentation revealed Elena's actual military occupational specialty as a precision weapons specialist assigned to classified programs that operated under different command structures than conventional military units. Her personnel file had been sanitized for security reasons, concealing advanced training and operational experience that explained her extraordinary marksmanship capabilities. Nash read the information with growing understanding of the unusual situation. Your official designation is Staff Sergeant Elena Vasquez, Precision Weapons Specialist, 1st Special Operations Detachment, Nash announced, his voice carrying new appreciation for her actual qualifications. Your training includes advanced sniper schools, long-range reconnaissance courses, and specialized programs that represent the highest levels of marksmanship instruction available in military service. The impossible shots you made this week were routine for your actual skill level. Elena acknowledged Nash's recognition of her true background while maintaining the professional discretion that had characterized her approach throughout the course. Sir, my assignment to this training program was designed to evaluate conventional instruction methods and assess curriculum effectiveness for advanced students, she explained, revealing the actual purpose behind her 6-week participation in courses that were beneath her qualification level. Nash understood that Elena's modest performance throughout most of the course had been deliberately restrained to avoid revealing capabilities that exceeded those of her instructors. Only the impossible shot demonstration and final exercise had required her to display skills approaching her actual competence level. Her presence had been a classified evaluation of training program effectiveness rather than personal professional development. The telephone conversation with headquarters had prepared Nash for this revelation while emphasizing the continued importance of operational security regarding Elena's specific assignments and deployment history. Her participation in the advanced course would be documented as successful completion without revealing the assessment mission that had motivated her attendance. The cover story would protect both her identity and the evaluation program's objectives. Nash expressed his professional admiration for Elena's approach to the challenging assignment, recognizing the discipline required to maintain appropriate performance levels while conducting official evaluation activities. Your ability to conceal exceptional capabilities while participating authentically in training exercises demonstrates operational skills that extend beyond marksmanship, he observed, understanding the complexity of her actual duties. Elena accepted Nash's recognition while deflecting attention from her individual achievement toward the broader success of the training program she had been assigned to evaluate. The course curriculum and instruction methods proved effective for developing advanced capabilities among conventional students, she reported, providing positive assessment that would influence future program development and resource allocation decisions. The administrative completion of Elena's training assignment required documentation that would satisfy both conventional course records and the classified reporting requirements associated with her evaluation mission. Nash prepared dual sets of paperwork that would protect operational security while ensuring proper recognition of her official participation. The process demonstrated the careful balance required when classified assignments intersected with standard military training programs. Rodriguez knocked on Nash's office door, requesting permission to address Elena before her departure from the training facility. Nash granted the request, recognizing that Elena's exceptional performance had created personal connections that deserved acknowledgement despite the security considerations surrounding her actual background. Rodriguez entered with obvious respect and genuine appreciation for her demonstrated professionalism. Staff Sergeant Vasquez, Rodriguez said, his voice carrying the sincerity of someone whose preconceptions had been completely transformed. Your performance throughout this course has redefined my understanding of what dedicated training and professional excellence can achieve. I've learned more from observing your approach than from years of conventional instruction. Thank you for the example you provided. Elena accepted Rodriguez's recognition with characteristic grace, acknowledging the mutual learning that had occurred during their shared training experience. Professional development benefits everyone when approached with the right attitude and commitment to excellence, she replied, demonstrating the modest leadership that had impressed everyone throughout the 6-week program. Your own dedication and willingness to learn have been equally impressive. Morrison and Shun joined Rodriguez in Nash's office, seeking similar opportunities to express their appreciation for Elena's exceptional example and professional mentorship. The group dynamic had been permanently transformed by her demonstration of capabilities that exceeded their previous understanding of achievable performance standards. Their respect extended beyond her shooting skills to encompass the character and professionalism she had displayed consistently. Nash observed these interactions with satisfaction, recognizing that Elena's assignment had achieved objectives beyond the formal evaluation requirements. Her presence had inspired exceptional effort from other candidates while demonstrating performance standards that would influence their future professional development. The training program had benefited from her participation in ways that extended beyond curriculum assessment. The formal conclusion of Elena's training assignment approached, with documentation completed and professional relationships acknowledged appropriately. Nash expressed his hope that future assignments might provide opportunities for continued professional interaction, though he understood that her actual duties would likely preclude such conventional training program participation. Elena's response remained diplomatically vague while expressing appreciation for the learning experience. If you enjoyed this story about Elena's incredible demonstration of hidden expertise, drop a comment about your favorite moment or share if you've ever witnessed someone exceed all expectations like she did. Elena gathered her personal equipment and prepared to depart the training facility. Her 6-week assignment concluded successfully with objectives achieved and operational security maintained. The impossible shots that had silenced 17 skeptics would be remembered long after her departure, though few would ever understand the true background that had made such performance routine rather than extraordinary. Nash watched Elena's departure with profound respect for her professionalism and the exceptional capabilities she had revealed under controlled circumstances. The advanced marksmanship course would continue with new standards inspired by her demonstration, though future candidates would likely never approach the performance levels she had achieved. Her brief presence had permanently elevated expectations while providing a standard of excellence that would influence instruction for years to come. Elena departed Fort Bragg with her evaluation mission completed successfully, returning to duties that would remain classified while carrying memories of professional relationships that had developed despite the unusual circumstances of her assignment. The quiet sniper who had been mocked for asking impossible questions had proven that expertise often dwells behind modest appearances, waiting for the right moment to silence doubt through flawless demonstration of extraordinary capability.